Surely many people have dreamed of becoming a famous blogger overnight. After all, sometimes it takes just one viral video to launch a career promising fame and fortune. But what if that dream actually turns into a nightmare? A nightmare where you're held captive and forced to perform in front of a camera day and night. This nightmare became a reality for 22-year-old Chen Qiaofeng. Her dance video went viral on the Chinese version of TikTok, and after posting a few more videos over 2 months, she gained 400,000 followers. But the girl herself was far from thrilled about her newfound popularity, because all her actions were controlled by a real puppeteer. And before we get started, be kind enough to support my channel. Subscribe to the channel, like the video, and stay active. It will help a lot. I will be very grateful to you for that. Let's get started. Douyin is the Chinese version of TikTok, a social media platform for sharing short videos and hosting live streams. Douyin was launched in 2016 and quickly became one of the largest social networks in China, with nearly 750 million registered users, most of whom are between 18 and 35 years old. The profiles of bloggers popular in Chinese cyberspace rarely have followers outside the country. The app offers professional video content tailored to users' interests across various genres, including beauty, sports, and science. Like any social network, Douyin provides the opportunity to record and share important life moments. Learn various skills from professionals, such as cooking, dancing, foreign languages, and drawing. Enhance videos with creative tools like filters and stickers. You can find all kinds of content there. Popular bloggers earn huge sums of money on the platform through views and brand deals. Anyone can publish content, but whether it will resonate with the audience and turn a novice blogger into a star, only time will tell. In the summer of 2018, a new user who had only recently started posting their own videos suddenly woke up famous. Their video went viral, and the account quickly gained popularity. Each new video hit the trends and added more followers. The author and main star of these videos was a 22-year-old dance teacher named Chen Qiaofeng. Qiaofeng was born in 1996 and grew up in a coastal town on the outskirts of China, near the city of Qixi. Her childhood was spent in the company of her older brother. Their family was quite well off. Her parents owned a factory. So Qiaofeng grew up in a nurturing atmosphere of love and prosperity. The girl was very kind, gentle, and soft-spoken. She loved animals and treated people with respect. In Chinese culture, there is a tradition of giving children names that carry specific meanings. Most often, the name reflects wishes for longevity, wealth, a successful career, family happiness, or the affirmation of moral values. That's why Qiaofeng's parents gave their daughter a name meaning success and mastery, and the girl embodied her name through her passion for dance. At 7 years old, Qiaofeng studied various dance styles, participated in competitions, and won awards. She was a brilliant dancer. During classes, the girl often helped younger children master complex techniques or learn new moves. She found joy in watching these tiny humans improve their dancing week by week. Even as a child herself, Qiaofeng decided that one day she would become a teacher and pass on her skills to children. After finishing school, she pursued her childhood dream and became a kindergarten teacher. After working in that role for a year, the girl decided to return to dancing and try to build a career in that direction. At 19, Chen earned a dance instructor qualification and fully dedicated herself to her beloved craft. Soon after graduating from university, she started working with preschool-aged children, around 4-5 years old. Qiaofeng was one of those people born to work with little ones. Her calm, patient demeanor made dance classes special. Her students adored her and eagerly attended lessons. Around this time, her parents gave their daughter an apartment in Qixi, close to her workplace, so Qiaofeng wouldn't have to spend time commuting, as well as a Mercedes-Benz car. Her salary at the new job also increased slightly, but this mattered little to the girl. The financial aspect of life didn't concern her because she never relied on luxury or fashion trends. Chen and Qiaofeng's parents planned for their daughter to eventually marry. They didn't have high demands for their future son-in-law. The main thing was that he had a good character and treated his young wife with love and respect. After all, the Chen family was wealthy and could easily secure their children's future. Qiaofeng's father had planned from the start that after his daughter married, he would help the young couple buy equipment to start their own factory, ensuring they had enough money for food and clothing. In 2017, during a dance rehearsal while Chen Qiaofeng was changing, one of her colleagues noticed a tattoo on the girl's back depicting a small kitten, a puppy, and 2 names. The dance school instructor immediately guessed the meaning of the drawing. When Qiaofeng was asked about romantic relationships, she smiled shyly and nodded, confirming that she had indeed found a boyfriend. His name was Wei Dun, and he was 26 years old. Wei Dun was 5 years older than Qiaofeng. They met while attending a vocational school. Because of her striking appearance, the girl always had plenty of admirers. Very polite, quiet, gentle, and beautiful, especially in dance. Qiaofeng was like a dazzling, unattainable star. Young men didn't spark much interest in the girl because she was consumed by dance. At least, that was the case until she met Wei Dun. Her relationship with him was Qiaofeng's first experience with love and partnership. Rarely does first love become the only one, because lovers are often caught up in their dreams and fail to notice many things about their partner. It's as if they're wearing rose-colored glasses, seeing everything in a different light. That's roughly what Chen Qiaofeng felt when she started dating Wei Dun. The young man was also born and raised in Qixi, but his parents spent the entire year beekeeping in Inner Mongolia. This is an autonomous region in northern China, bordering Mongolia and Russia. Due to the constant absence of his father and mother, Wei Dun was raised by his grandmother from childhood. In vocational school, the guy trained as a chef, but after finishing his studies, he didn't pursue his culinary skills and instead got a job as a clothing salesman. He spotted the charming Qiaofeng in a bar and from that moment did everything to win her attention. The girl's friends couldn't understand what she saw in this ordinary guy. Chen had so many suitors that she could have chosen anyone, but for some reason, her gaze settled on this particular person. The word that could describe Wei Dun was slacker. Deep down, the guy hated the very idea of working. He was too proud to obey anyone or toil for someone else. Interestingly, his name meant reaping benefits and always having a roof over his head. Since he had no particular skills or entrepreneurial streak, Wei Dun simply refused to do anything. He told his beloved that he had his own clothing line and spent hours talking about business. Apparently, his time as a salesman in a store wasn't for nothing. Meanwhile, as he won Chen Qiaofeng's heart, he showered her with gifts and compliments. He cooked delicious lunches and served them like in a fancy restaurant. He took her on romantic trips and arranged incredible dates. Somehow, he found the money for it all, despite not having a job. The girl, inexperienced in romantic matters, was surrounded with such care and love that her heart melted, and worse, she became emotionally dependent on her boyfriend. This is called love bombing, a manipulative technique that involves rapid, intense seduction. The goal of this approach is to lower the partner's guard, gain their affection and complete trust, and establish control over the relationship. Often, people who use manipulation early in a relationship may drop their masks once they've secured reciprocated love. By then, the ordinary partner is already too deeply attached to their significant other and unable to break off the relationship. People get married, have children, and often it's too late to change anything. They suffer their whole lives and genuinely don't understand what happened to their partner, why they suddenly changed so much. Love bombing eventually ends, and the ideal image of a prince on a white horse vanishes. That's what happened with Wei Dun. Chen Qiaofeng began to notice negative traits in her once perfect partner, whom she had considered ideal not long ago. First, the man started getting extremely jealous. He absolutely had to know where she spent her time, what she was doing, and who she was meeting. If the answer didn't satisfy him or the girl didn't respond quickly enough, it triggered a full-blown scandal, loud shouting, and serious arguments. While Qiaofeng worked a full-time job, her partner spent days on end lounging on the couch in her apartment. Of course, Chen didn't like this, and she was embarrassed to tell her friends and acquaintances that Wei Dun didn't work anywhere. She hid the fact that she had a boyfriend from her parents entirely. Qiaofeng knew her mother and father wouldn't approve of such a man, so she kept her relationship a secret. She wanted to introduce her boyfriend to her family only after he found a stable job. One day in August 2017, just a few months after their relationship began, Chen Qiaofeng went to work as usual. Wei Dun stayed in the apartment. That day, the girl's parents went to a doctor's appointment at a city hospital in Qixi. After the visit, they decided to drop by their daughter's place unannounced. It was already 10 a.m., so the mother and father were very surprised when a sleepy young man appeared in the doorway of their daughter's bedroom. They guessed that Qiaofeng had a boyfriend and, to avoid embarrassing him, settled in the living room to give him time to get ready. But Wei Dun had no intention of meeting his potential in-laws. He slammed the bedroom door, collapsed back into bed, and slept for another couple of hours. The young man didn't even try to make a good impression on his girlfriend's parents. Naturally, Qiaofeng's father and mother immediately formed a poor opinion of this man. Instead of coming out to greet them, he simply ignored their arrival. But despite the awkward atmosphere of the first meeting between the parents and their daughter's potential fiancé, they waited for Qiaofeng and told her they would support any choice she made as long as she was happy. Surprisingly, the guy himself was eager for his girlfriend to impress his own parents. In early 2018, Wei Dun's parents returned from Inner Mongolia to Qixi to celebrate the Lunar New Year. The young couple went to visit them. Wei Dun was very proud of his girlfriend, though deep down he knew perfectly well he didn't deserve her affection. Still, he wanted Qiaofeng to make a good impression on his father and mother. The quiet, modest girl immediately won over the guy's parents. They even gave her a red envelope with money containing 10,000 yuan for the new year. Such envelopes were given by the older generation to the younger. It symbolized good wishes, success, and luck in the coming year. It was believed that the more money, the greater the good wishes. For Wei Dun's father and mother, this was a significant sum. But they, in turn, also wanted to impress the girl, realizing their son was very lucky with his choice. Now that the young couple had more or less met both sets of parents, their relationship should have, in theory, moved to a new level. But gradually, more and more conflicts arose in the pair. After the honeymoon phase, Chen Qiaofeng slowly began to discover the extremely cruel side of Wei Dun's personality. One day in February 2018, the couple argued first thing in the morning. It happened as the girl was getting ready for work. The ensuing scandal nearly made her late for classes. Grabbing her bag and car keys, Qiaofeng slammed the door and hurried to the dance school. But as soon as she turned onto the next street, out of nowhere, Wei Dun ran into the middle of the road and forced her to stop. It turned out he was furious because his girlfriend hadn't listened to him fully. He had bolted out of the apartment after her and cut her off, taking a shortcut. Wei Dun decided to continue the argument right there on the street. When Qiaofeng explained that she was late for work, he snatched her phone, took her car keys, and went home. The girl sat in the car, not knowing what to do. She couldn't drive away, nor could she leave the car unlocked. She had no phone to call the dance studio and warn them about her delay. Chen just sobbed. Eventually, she got out of the car and started stopping passers-by, asking to use their phones. Qiaofeng called her brother, who came and quickly sorted out the situation. That's how Wei Dun first met his girlfriend's older brother. Qiaofeng had never told her family about her boyfriend's erratic behavior, fearing her parents would worry. But this incident made the Chen family feel that Wei Dun was unreliable and hardly suited to be the husband of their beloved daughter. They drew their conclusions, but allowed Qiaofeng to make her own decision. Later that night, after the argument, the girl tried to break up with her boyfriend and even asked him to leave. But Wei Dun had no intention of letting go of such a prize and bombarded Chen's phone with audio and video messages, tearfully begging her to take him back. He said he couldn't live without her. He pleaded for forgiveness and berated himself harshly for treating his beloved so poorly. In reality, these were just manipulations. Wei Dun was trying to play on pity and do whatever it took to win Qiaofeng back, insisting that his life would be ruined without her. He sent her flowers and showered her with gifts, pulling her thoughts back to the early days of their romance. It's worth remembering that this was the girl's first serious relationship, and she had nothing to compare it to, so Qiaofeng entertained the idea that such things happen in loving relationships. Wei Dun was older and more experienced. He easily found arguments in his favor. In the end, Chen forgave him, took him back, and their relationship resumed. But a few weeks later, it all started again. One day in April, Qiaofeng's school was hosting a dance competition. Early in the morning, as she was getting ready for work, Wei Dun insisted on going with her. Without explaining his strange behavior, the young man simply got into the girl's car. On the way, they argued, as usual. All their fights stemmed from the same reasons. Wei Dun didn't like that Qiaofeng wasn't financially dependent on him. Of course, this was absurd since he didn't work anywhere and couldn't actually support the girl, but he usually masked his frustrations with feigned jealousy. He strictly forbade his girlfriend from talking to other men, though Chen never gave him any reason to doubt her loyalty. Wei Dun was unhealthily obsessed with his girlfriend, and his decision to go with her to work only confirmed his desire to control everything. While Qiaofeng went to help the kids prepare for their performance, Wei Dun was supposed to wait in the car. However, when she returned, the girl didn't find her boyfriend there. Instead, the front bumper and the dashboard display of her Mercedes were smashed to pieces. The car repair cost her a pretty penny. Qiaofeng got home closer to evening. Wei Dun wasn't in the apartment, so she locked the doors, had dinner, and went to bed peacefully. But around midnight, she was woken by dull thuds. The girl didn't want to start a scene in the middle of the night, so she refused to let him in. This infuriated the man so much that he started kicking the door. Qiaofeng was terrified. She called her brother and complained that Wei Dun was trying to break into her apartment by force. When her alarmed brother rushed to save his sister, the cowardly boyfriend had already vanished. This situation further turned the girl's relatives against her boyfriend. They understood that nothing good would come of this. Now the family insisted that Chen needed to break up with this guy and move on. In fact, Qiaofeng's grandparents even visited a fortune teller to learn the future of this couple. The clairvoyant warned that the young couple shouldn't stay together and needed to part ways as soon as possible. The girl's relatives sincerely hoped her romance would end soon, and the wishes of Chen's loved ones would come true, just not in the way they had hoped. Qiaofeng felt that the breakup would be painful and drawn out. Nevertheless, she decided to end the relationship a second time. But as soon as she slipped out of his control, Wei Dun resorted to his manipulations. He started sobbing on camera, getting down on his knees, and saying that Qiaofeng was the love of his life. He couldn't live a single day without her. Astonishingly, it worked a second time. The compassionate Chen couldn't bear to see someone kneeling before her and forgave her boyfriend. Their relationship was like a roller coaster. Despite not working anywhere, Wei Dun often went off somewhere, and it wasn't the clothing line he had mentioned before. He was engaged in a completely different kind of business. In May 2018, Qiaofeng accidentally learned that her boyfriend was drowning in debt because of gambling. Gambling had become a real addiction for Wei Dun. Apparently, he believed that one day he'd win a big sum, and then he'd never have to work again. Often, people suffering from gambling addiction start lying, stealing money, and manipulating those around them just to feed their need for gambling. Wei Dun could hardly be called emotionally stable before, but with his gambling addiction and mounting debt, he was becoming completely unmanageable. In a fit of anger, Qiaofeng broke up with her boyfriend for the third time. She hoped she could end the relationship before the consequences of his gambling caught up with her, but it was already too late. This time, Wei Dun didn't beg or cry. He called a locksmith while Chen was away, broke into her apartment, and took most of her clothes and documents. As soon as Qiaofeng discovered the theft, she called the police. But once she learned that her ex-boyfriend was behind the burglary, the girl withdrew her statement and began to pity the person who had been by her side not long ago. Qiaofeng understood that the reason for his behavior lay in his unhealthy state and gambling addiction, and she didn't want to make things worse for him. No matter how angry she was at Wei Dun, seeing him behind bars was more than she could bear. Her big heart wouldn't allow her to put the guy in prison, even if it meant she suffered as a result. To make amends to his girlfriend, Wei Dun went and bought her a puppy she had long dreamed of. It sounds wonderful, but in reality, the arrival of the dog meant they were now even more tied to each other. Now they had a four-legged pet. It needed to be cared for, fed, and walked. They had to share responsibility. Over the course of a few months, from February to May, the couple broke up and got back together 3 times. With the arrival of the puppy, the two decided to start over once again. At the end of May, Wei Dun and Qiaofeng decided to go on a short romantic trip to Hangzhou to get away from people, relax, and take a boat ride on the lake. In Hangzhou, the couple went for a boat ride. At first, they just enjoyed drinks and food, admired the stunning views, and talked. Qiaofeng was in a great mood. At one point, the girl jumped up and started fooling around to the music playing in the background. As a dancer, Chen's movements were smooth and elegant. She had perfect control over her body. Wei Dun took out his phone and started filming his girlfriend's dance with the lake in the background. Then the young man simply uploaded the video to Douyin, the Chinese version of TikTok. In record time, the clip went viral and racked up over 1.5 million likes. The combination of a trending sound, the beautiful lakeside setting, and Qiaofeng's spontaneity played a big role. She danced from the heart and had no intention of becoming famous. Chen didn't yet know that this video would mark the beginning of an entirely new nightmare. In reality, to truly captivate an audience, simple things are enough. Qiaofeng was an ordinary girl, but she suddenly became a social media star within a month. Following the likes came offers for brand collaborations and new financial opportunities. Wei Dun's eyes lit up with dollar signs. He planned to make money without doing anything himself. The account where the video was posted was registered in his name, and he had never shared anything there before. Over the course of a month, from May 26th to June 26th, Wei Dun forced Qiaofeng to film 59 different videos, all of which were uploaded to his account. He spent hours researching social media trends, looking for popular music and concepts, and pressured the girl to film, sign brand deals, and gain more followers. Constant posting led to the follower count growing to 400,000. However, Qiaofeng herself had no say in the matter. All brand deals were handled by Wei Dun in her name, and he received the payments on his card. No matter how hard Chen tried to distance herself from performing on camera, her boyfriend found the right words to convince her to record the next video. He insisted that they had to fulfill contract obligations. Qiaofeng made it clear to the guy that she didn't want fame. She wanted to live an ordinary life, teaching children to dance. But against her will, she had to play the part of a carefree girl, eager for new followers. Meanwhile, she didn't see any of the money. It was easier for Chen to give in to her boyfriend than to live in constant stress. However, despite all the perks, the couple's relationship kept deteriorating. If Wei Dun used to express his anger verbally, now he started damaging and breaking her things. It's possible he even raised his hand to her. Of course, Qiaofeng was afraid to tell her parents everything, so she confided in one of her friends. She felt depressed and said she no longer had the strength to stand up to Wei Dun. No matter how much the girl begged him to slow down and reduce the number of videos, the guy wouldn't listen. Her friend told her what Chen already knew. She called Qiaofeng a tool for making money and urged her to end all ties with her boyfriend. The friend's words gave Chen confidence, and she decided to put an end to it once and for all. The girl knew a direct breakup wouldn't work, because then Wei Dun would lose his source of income and might act unpredictably. At first, she tried to simply distance herself from him, finding reasons to spend less time at home, citing constant busyness at the dance school, but it didn't work. On the night of June 20th, 2018, Qiaofeng and Wei Dun argued again. While the girl was asleep, her boyfriend took her phone and transferred 10,000 yuan from her bank account to himself. Earlier, the young man had demanded the red envelope with 10,000 yuan that his parents had given her for the Chinese New Year. He had already spent that money long ago, but pretended he hadn't touched it. When Chen woke up the next morning and realized her own boyfriend had robbed her, she was beside herself with rage. Qiaofeng even tried to kick him out of her apartment, but of course he refused to leave. During the scuffle, Wei Dun completely broke down the apartment door, leaving the girl unable to go to work. Left without a door, Qiaofeng called her family in tears, begging for help. When her brother arrived, Wei Dun immediately fled. For her parents, this situation was the final straw. They desperately wanted to protect their daughter from this man, but knew that Chen was an adult and would want to stay in the city. However, her father and mother had an ace up their sleeve. Officially, the apartment belonged to them. The parents came up with a plan, telling their daughter they wanted to sell the property, so she'd have to move back home and live with them for a while until they found her a new place. At the end of June 2018, Qiaofeng moved to her family's home in her hometown, where she was completely safe. Her brother immediately replaced all the locks on her apartment doors. A week later, her parents actually sold the property. Qiaofeng officially told her boyfriend they were done. She changed her phone number and blocked him on all messengers. But Wei Dun wasn't about to lose a lucrative income because of his ex-girlfriend's whims. He started stalking Chen everywhere and tried contacting her from other numbers. When that didn't work, he resorted to a forbidden tactic. After hundreds of ignored calls, Wei Dun sent Qiaofeng a video of him abusing the puppy he had bought her as an apology gift. In the video, the guy held the dog, dangling it on a leash over an open window. He said that if Chen refused to talk to him, she'd see her pet die. Naturally, this was a blow to Qiaofeng. The girl's kind heart couldn't bear the thought of anything happening to the dog. She rushed to Wei Dun and bought the puppy back from him for nearly 3,000 yuan, even though the animal had been given to her as an apology. After rescuing the pet, Qiaofeng tried to sever all possible ties with this man. She didn't want him to have even the smallest reason to contact her. The girl withdrew 10,000 yuan from her account, put the money in an envelope, and returned it to Wei Dun's parents. Though they refused to take the gift back, Chen passed the money through relatives. However, the young man didn't stop and kept looking for ways to meet her. From the messages Wei Dun sent to Chen Qiaofeng, it was clear how his mood swung. Sometimes he professed his love for her, and other times he threatened to take her life. One day, the ex-boyfriend tracked his girlfriend down when she went to a park to meet a friend. Wei Dun hid behind trees and watched Qiaofeng. When he saw another man next to her, he jumped out of his hiding spot and started a fight. At one point, Wei Dun pulled out a knife and was about to use it when Chen's piercing scream drew the attention of other park visitors. Afraid of the police, the guy dropped the weapon and fled into the trees. Fortunately, no one was seriously hurt that evening. Until that moment, Qiaofeng hadn't told anyone much about her ex-boyfriend's aggressive and cruel nature. But now, there was a witness to Wei Dun's unhinged behavior. And the friend wasn't going to stay silent. He escorted Chen home and told her parents just how dangerous this man really was. The family was in shock. They knew Wei Dun was rude and volatile, but they had no idea he could attack someone with a knife in broad daylight. Her mother and father couldn't understand how the guy managed to track Qiaofeng down, given that she had blocked his number everywhere. They even considered the possibility that Wei Dun might have put a tracker on their daughter's car. Worried for her safety, her parents asked the girl not to go out alone for a while. They promised to pick her up from work and accompany her on errands. It was a wild situation. Chen just wanted to end the relationship, which was her full right. and she shouldn't have had to fear for her life. Over the next few days, Wei Dun kept sending the girl videos of him kneeling and begging her to forgive him. When he got no response, he started asking for one last meeting. He cried, complaining about how bad things were without her. But Chen ignored all his messages. Then the tone of his messages changed sharply. The guy switched to threats and intimidation. In reality, receiving such messages wasn't new for Qiaofeng. She had dealt with them throughout their entire relationship. For the last 6 months, she had endured similar verbal abuse. But by this point, she had stopped reacting to Wei Dun's hateful messages. On August 1st, 2018, Qiaofeng woke up and, as usual, saw a bunch of messages from her ex-boyfriend. She didn't do anything, just left them unanswered. After the park incident, Chen's mother was worried about her daughter's safety, so she didn't let her drive and personally took her to work and back every day. That day, Qiaofeng texted her mom that she was going to the movies with friends that evening, so there was no need to pick her up. The woman advised her daughter to be careful. In turn, the girl assured her everything would be fine. The mother didn't yet know these would be her last messages from Qiaofeng. Around 8 in the evening, Chen finished her classes at the dance school, stepped outside, and immediately got into her friend's car, unaware that Wei Dun was watching her from his own vehicle. As the girls pulled into the shopping mall parking lot, Qiaofeng noticed she was being followed and recognized her ex-boyfriend's car. At that moment, fear gripped her body. Chen wasn't just scared for her own safety. She was well aware she was putting her friend in danger. She didn't want anyone else to get hurt because of her, so without saying a word, she jumped out of the car and ran as fast as she could to a nearby business district, usually crowded with people. The girl hoped that with so many witnesses around, the guy wouldn't harm her. Meanwhile, Wei Dun, realizing Qiaofeng had foiled his plans, grew even angrier. He leaped out of his car and chased after her. But no matter how furious the young man was, he didn't forget to put a mask over his face, not wanting people to see him. Wei Dun ran until he finally caught up with Qiaofeng, then grabbed her by the arm and dragged her into an empty arcade. Pinning her in a corner between gaming machines, he grabbed her by the throat and pulled a serrated knife from his pocket. The girl begged for help, realizing the guy was about to hurt her, but her screams were drowned out by the melody of a gaming machine filled with cute toys. Holding his girlfriend with one hand, Wei Dun stabbed the knife into her stomach with the other, twisting the blade in a circle before pulling it out. He repeated these movements over and over. When Qiaofeng stopped resisting and fell forward, he didn't stop, continuing to strike her neck. The arcade owner saw the fight and tried to intervene but nearly got stabbed himself. The man managed to dodge, grabbed a mop, and hit Wei Dun with all his strength. After that, the guy hurried to flee the scene. In total, the entire attack lasted 3 minutes. Those were the final 3 minutes of Chen Qiaofeng's life. She was only 22 years old. A beautiful, kind, and modest dance teacher who dedicated her life to teaching children was publicly killed by an obsessive, controlling, and cruel boyfriend who refused to accept the end of their relationship. When emergency services arrived at the scene, a crowd of onlookers had already gathered near the arcade. Qiaofeng had deliberately run to this busy part of the city, hoping Wei Dun wouldn't do anything in front of witnesses. But the bystander effect kicked in. Instead of helping, people just stood and watched, like spectators at a performance unfolding right before them. The bystander effect, or the effect of the onlooker. This is a psychological phenomenon where people witnessing an emergency don't try to help the victim. It's been established that the more bystanders there are, the less likely any one of them will help, because the responsibility for what's happening is, as it were, shared among many people. In other words, each bystander thinks someone else should help the victim, not them. Conversely, in a situation where there's no one else to help, a person acts far more decisively, and this isn't an isolated case. For example, in 2020, in a busy London Underground train, a girl was harassed by a complete stranger in front of an entire carriage, and no one came to her aid. Worst of all, people recognized Chen Qiaofeng as the dancer from viral videos they'd seen in their news feeds. Many even tried to record videos on their phones at the moment her ex-boyfriend was taking her life. The girl didn't want loud fame in life, but she got it even after her death. She was forced to live and die online. The autopsy showed that Qiaofeng had been stabbed 16 times in total. And these weren't just cuts. The wounds were deep, triangular gashes, and the attacker's goal was to inflict as much damage as possible. At 9:30 p.m. that same evening, Wei Dun turned himself in to the police. He thought confessing would lessen his punishment for the crime. When Qiaofeng's family went through her belongings, they found that on the bank card of a girl who earned over 10,000 yuan a month, less than 1 yuan remained. Chen was never extravagant, so it's likely Wei Dun swindled that money from her. After her parents unlocked their daughter's phone, they saw a slew of abusive text messages sent by her ex-boyfriend. Only then did they finally realize the extent of the terrifying threats and harassment their daughter had faced over the last month and a half. But the worst was the opinion of internet users. After looking into the situation, people began blaming Qiaofeng. Without any evidence, they claimed the girl had cheated on Wei Dun, that Chen was greedy for money and called her a gold digger. Meanwhile, the criminal was portrayed as just a lovesick man who snapped. Many couldn't even entertain the idea that a beautiful young woman could earn money and pay her bills on her own without relying on a man. The video of Qiaofeng simply dancing was equated to something akin to adult content. But what else can you expect from people who are only capable of typing negative comments online while hiding behind fake accounts? Incidentally, this was exactly why Chen didn't want to become famous, to avoid negativity from viewers. She taught dance to children and didn't want to ruin her reputation. One wrong move could completely destroy the life she had so carefully built for herself. But Wei Dun didn't care. He was only drawn to the prospect of making easy money. The most upsetting part of this whole situation was that Wei Dun's family started spreading lies around the city and even online, calling Qiaofeng a greedy person. They insisted that when the relationship ended, the girl refused to return the money their son's parents had given her for the new year, that she used their son and then broke his heart by ending things. Chen Qiaofeng's name was dragged through the mud, knowing she couldn't refute these rumors. But the girl's family stood up for her. They made posters in support of the deceased, took to the streets, posted photos on social media, and spoke about her in live streams, desperately wanting to put an end to all these dirty accusations against Qiaofeng. The false rumors only stopped when the police released details of the case and people finally saw the truth. On April 3, 2019, 8 months after Chen Qiaofeng's death, the first court hearing in the case took place. Wei Dun claimed he hadn't intended to take the girl's life, only to scare her with the knife so she would talk to him. However, this only made things worse. When she saw the knife, Qiaofeng started screaming and calling for help. Wei Dun tried to silence her and plunge the blade into her body, and then his mind went blank. The defendant also stated that none of this would have happened if Qiaofeng's mother had picked her up from work, as she had been doing recently. Essentially, the guy blamed the mother for her daughter's death. The woman couldn't bear such audacity and fainted right in the courtroom. Likely, the mother already blamed herself, so Wei Dun's words hit her hard. No matter how the young man tried to twist the situation in his favor, no one believed his nonsense. The entire courtroom was on the victim's side. The court of first instance ruled that the defendant Wei Dun had planned the attack in advance. Though he turned himself in, confessing to the horrific crime, it wasn't enough to mitigate his punishment. Wei Dun was sentenced to death. The young man refused to accept the decision and filed an appeal. His family scrambled and provided a psychiatrist's note stating that after the breakup with Chen Qiaofeng, Wei Dun suffered from depression and a mental disorder. But the appeal was rejected, and the judge's verdict was upheld. On August 31, 2020, the sentence was carried out. That same evening, some of Wei Dun's friends and relatives gathered outside the Chen family's home. They shouted and cursed every family member, believing Qiaofeng was to blame for the guy's execution. This happened as Wei Dun's loved ones were leaving the prison where they had said their final goodbyes to him. They were so upset that they decided to shift the blame for his death onto the family of the victim, whose life he took in the most horrific way. It's hard for any parent to imagine saying goodbye to their child under such circumstances. But perhaps it's worth looking at the situation a bit more broadly. That evening, the tension outside the Chen family's home escalated so much that the police arrived, and they had to take away Wei Dun's father, who nearly committed a crime against the family of the victim who suffered at his son's hands. Wei Dun's final act in this world was to become an organ donor after his execution as an attempt to atone for his guilt. But judging by his behavior, it's unlikely the young man truly regretted what he did. This guy didn't even find the strength or courage to apologize to Qiaofeng's family. If you have finished watching, you are a real fan of true crime. Subscribe to the channel, turn on the bell notifications, and put the like. See you in the next video.